quorum?
We do,
Okay.
but you'll have to confirm that.
All right, let's confirm we have a quorum at this COC meeting of, oh gosh, November 13th, 2024 commence.
Member Adams.
Present.
Member Dilworth, absent. Member Haggerty.
Present.
Member Cushell, absent. Member McCubbin.
Here.
Member McKay, absent. Member Najor.
Here.
Vice Chair Engdahl.
Here.
And Chair Sheehan.
Here, thank you. All right, call to order. Now I assume that everybody has read the minutes at some point. They were posted online, and there has been ample time, I think, since the last meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from August? Thank you. A second, please? Second. Thank you. All right. Announcements from COC members.
Chair?
Oh, did I skip one?
Well, there was a motion and a second, and then
Oh,
approval.
sorry. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. That's why we keep you around, Tom. Okay, now we have room for COC members' announcements. Can I ask if, I know you have, and I know Julia's in the room, so I'm assuming there's a whole list of holiday things, Santa teas and chocolates, and were you telling us anything about that as we go into the holidays, or do we get to wait? Thank you. Sorry, I hope I didn't put you on the spot.
I think, okay. Julia Gonzalez, Communications and Marketing Manager for SMART. So we will be sending out a special holiday e-blast that will feature that on December 7th, we are holding our annual holiday toy drive aboard the Holiday Express. But as you know, historically, every December, we have a specially decorated train that we call the Holiday Express. It hits the tracks this year right after the Thanksgiving holiday, and it'll run through the entire month of December. And it'll be put in the regular rotation. As part of our communications, we're highlighting events that you can attend by getting there by train and other transit services. And then the additional theme is shopping locally. We are running ads in a Press Democrat feature called Local Matters. And there is a special addition to the holiday events this year, which is an ice rink, a real ice rink in Petaluma. And that'll be something that'll be very, very easily reached via the train. And then for people who don't want to walk, there's the Luma Go shuttle that'll take you from the train station to the ice rink. So that'll be a new item that we'll be featuring this year. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope that wasn't off agenda, but Anthony, you have an item?
I mean,
Thank you.
yeah. So the thing that is of interest, towards my end, I'm also, since I'm also part of another, transit community, we're actually hosting a Winterfest in San Francisco, which you can easily get through by train and ferry. The event will fall on December the 6th until December the 8th. So that means there will be a, coordinated event, on the 7th. But December the 6th, that will be I would say, holiday lighting at Salesforce Transit Center. So it'll be at the park upstairs. So that'll be an interesting, a way to start the holiday season, taking the train, taking the ferry, and then walk towards the rooftop park at Salesforce Transit Center.
Thank you. Do you have a press release on that? You can send me and I'll see where
Yeah, I can forward it to all of you. It's it's pretty much the press release and the flyer is I can send it all out to you, after the meeting.
Thank you. Welcome, Zach.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm late.
No worries. My favorite part, General Manager's report.
I'm glad somebody's excited. That's awesome. So, good afternoon, COC. I have a few things today. I'll give you an update on ridership, talk about our pathway trips, a little bit of update on construction, and then just really talk about a lot of upcoming improvements we have. A lot of these things, a lot of these projects are coming together, and just share kind of what we're doing, what we're looking at moving forward. And then if you've been paying attention, you know there's been a lot of progress on the Hillsburg extension. I'll talk a little bit about that and kind of our next steps there. And then of course at the end I'll open it up for questions. Starting off with ridership, our October ridership was 96,599, and that was 36% higher than where we were in October 23, and was a new SMART monthly record. And so, you know, if you just look at the past, 4 or 5 months there, right? We've been over 80,000 riders, which is something up until last April, something that never happened at SMART. So knowing that pre-pandemic, our overall highest ridership was somewhere around about 75,000, to be at 97,000 post-pandemic, we're pretty excited about that. So making progress. Average weekday ridership for October was 3,638. That was 32% above October 23. November average weekday ridership to date is 3,570. That's down a little bit, but don't forget we ran full weekday service on Monday, so that kind of brought our average down a little bit. We only had about, I think it was 2,500 riders that day, so quite a bit less than what we see on a typical day. But yesterday we were back up over 3,700. So I think that number will come up over, probably be close to where we were in October as we make it through the month. This is a slide that I haven't shown in a long time, but just really, you know, kind of tracks our progress. This is historical ridership at SMART. And the orange dotted line that you see there kind of at the center of the page is our pre-pandemic average. You can see it's been about 18 months. We've been above that line, which is really good. But if you just look at, you know, since probably around April of 24, you've just seen that line really take off. So something that a lot of transit agencies in the country can't show ridership recovery like this. So this shows that what we're doing, the decisions that the COC and the board are making, along with this great staff, they're making a difference, and we're continuing to move the needle. Pathway trips have also been very strong. In October, we had 80,610 pathway trips, and that was 25% higher than what we saw last October. Moving on to talk a little bit about construction. This is a great photo. This is the roundabout in Windsor. It's looking north. You can see the station there under construction, but when I first received this photo, it felt like this one needed a full page, but I think this is just a really great picture and showing all the progress we're making up there. Just a few more pictures. You know, with construction, a lot going on. As this COC knows, we have Petaluma North, we have the Windsor extension, and we have over 9 miles of pathway currently under construction today. So a lot of things going on, and as I'll talk about on the next slide, a lot of this stuff is nearing completion as we speak. So what do we have in the pipeline? We plan to open Petaluma North Station in December of 24. We'll complete the Windsor extension in the spring of 25. Excuse me. We will finish 9.3 miles of pathway. That'll happen between late 24 and the spring of 25. And then just to note, we have 9 pathway segments that are currently in design and permitting. We are installing real-time electronic train arrival signage. That's up, how many stations now, Emily? We have that at 3 stations now. It was at Petaluma Station last week, and it's up there. You can see it. It's really nice. I think the public's going to appreciate that. We're also installing pathway wayfinding signage. That's expected to be in by the end of the year. Since the last time we met, we've been very successful in bringing in some grant dollars. We received $11.7 million in pathway grants, and that was $7 million that was federal Safe Streets for All, and that will fund the Guerneville to Airport pathway. And then more recently, we received $4.7 million in TAM programmed RM3 funding, and that will fund Hannah Ranch to Roland. And then, as many of you know, had a lot of movement on Hillsburg, and so we're mobilizing on that project. Looking specifically at Healdsburg, a lot has happened, over the past several months. In September 24, the SMART Board awarded the Healdsburg project cost estimator contract to Coco Consult for project delivery, cost estimating, and procurement support. In October 24, this is a big one, Healdsburg project was amended into Plan Bay Area 2050 by the MTC Commission. As you know, that is something we have been working on for years to get that project in there, and it finally happened. On that very same day, the state of California awarded SMART $81 million in Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program grant funding for the Healdsburg project to the northern city limits. And we'll talk more about that later. And then in November 24, as we're looking into this month, Caltrans and MTC will be submitting Solutions for Congested Corridor program grant for the SMART extension to Healdsburg. We anticipate hearing about that sometime in probably May or June of 25. And then SMART separately will be submitting a local partnership program competitive grant for the SMART extension to Healdsburg. We'll anticipate hearing about that, same as the previous one, probably in June of 25. So I know that when you start talking about all these grants and them piling on top of one another and all those things, that can become very confusing. And so as I've talked about grants in the past, I've used the puzzle pieces, and to me it makes sense and it kind of helps people understand. But here's where we are today. We have all the puzzle pieces required, but we have 2 additional grants pending to close the gap between Healdsburg and Windsor. We have Solutions for Congested Corridors. That is a $56 billion grant request. And then we have that local partnership grant that I told you about that would give us $25 million. The one thing that I want everybody to be very clear on, I say we're not going to hear about this until, June of 25, but we're not waiting. We're not waiting on the future grant announcements. We're currently preparing progressive design build contract documents to move that project forward. So our next steps as we look at this, we'll likely select a contractor in the summer of 25. We'll begin construction in the summer of 26, complete the project by the end of 28, and then as always, we will continue to make progress towards Cloverdale. So again, kind of complicated. We really were focused on not just getting to the depot, but getting to the edge of the city limits as we continue to make progress going north. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the COC may have.
With that, I'll be happy to take questions. Zach?
Just to clarify, Eddie, it sounded like you were saying you're moving full steam ahead, even though those last 2 grants haven't come in. The plan is let's operate like they're coming, and if not, we'll adjust. I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were. Okay, cool.
Yep,
Thank you.
let's keep moving. There's all those other grants are there, right? And so there is a lot of money to make a lot of progress. So we're going to move. Us doing the progressive design builds allows us to make progress over time, and so we're mobilizing, and I think we have a really good chance. So as you look at those Solution for Congested Corridor grant funds, only 2 entities can recommend projects, MTC and Caltrans. Both of them are co-nominating this project for that. So you would think our chances would be really good of getting this done.
Thank you. It's a
Thank you.
great update overall. I hope you and the team feel pretty good about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question about the bridge. Is that money there for it now? Are you going to start working on it, or what's going to happen on that?
Yeah, we're gonna bring the contractor on board and then see what makes sense as regards to timing,
Okay.
right? Because we don't want to tie anybody's hands, right? What's
Yeah.
gonna make timing with the weather, with conditions? When does
Yeah.
that need to be done? So yeah, we're gonna bring the contractor on board and give us some tips and make sure that we're aligned with our
Okay.
contractor.
Great.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Tom.
I apologize, what's going on at Hannah Ranch to Roland? You went by
Pathway.
really quickly on that.
Oh, sorry, that'd be a pathway project.
Okay, all
Yep.
right. And what's the pathway gonna do? I mean, where does it go?
It goes it's next to the right-of-way, and it goes from Hannah Ranch Road to Roland.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I also got a message from you that launching the pathway from McInnes to Smith Ranch. I believe, the 22nd. Will this, will this event, be, move on, even if, like, right now it's raining, if you know what I mean.
Rain or shine.
Okay, sounds good.
Bicyclists are tough. They'll show up. I watched this one ride in today. She'll be fine, right?
I
No,
had a question.
Oh, sorry.
And that was about the, to Guerneville. Where do we consider Guerneville? Like, not the path? It's going,
Guerneville Road.
is it?
Guerneville
just to
Road.
Guerneville Road.
So
Okay.
you have
parallel
pathway
the
already on
track.
one side,
Okay,
right? And you go across the road, Guerneville Road, and then the pathway that would take you all the way to airport.
so we're actually talking about Guerneville, passing Guerneville Road, not going to
Yeah, it'd be the
Guerneville.
pathway from Guerneville Road to airport.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else comment? Go ahead, Sherry. Yeah.
Mostly, I just want to acknowledge the really awesome work that's happening. Personally, I was motivated to get involved because, like a lot of cyclists, I just thought, like, what is this pathway? Come on. And y'all are like, the amount of work that's happening right now, and understanding that gaps make it, really decrease its value, and trying to fill those gaps. Seeing the money come in to go from Guerneville to airport, yeah, that's great. Seeing that as the rail gets built, the pathway goes in, that's great. So mostly I just want to say it's awesome to see what's happening. The electric signage, I'm really excited about that. That's something I've really always wished for. I'm a little more like up to date with technology and can look it up on my phone these days, but that wasn't true when I started riding the train, and it's not true for everyone, so that's great. I'm going to throw this out there, not necessarily now, but at some point I will value hearing. There's a commenter, we all have read their comments, they may speak as well, who regularly proposes that smart money should support first, last mile solutions that other entities are implementing. And I will be interested at some point in this meeting, or when appropriate, hearing SMART's response to that. Thank you.
I think I could just answer that right now. I'm really hesitant. I mean, I so much appreciate the partnership that we have with the bicycle community. I think the relationships that we have are as good or better than they've ever been, and we've worked well together really well. I'm hesitant to start fencing off money, right? There's a lot of times that you need some flexibility to do with what you have as priorities right then, and maybe that's taken advantage of one thing or another, so I'm really hesitant to do that. I think what I would say is that if you look at just the past few years, it's obvious, I think it should be obvious that we are committed to getting the pathway done and helping our partners accomplish everything that we can. And so we're going to continue to do that. But I am really hesitant to start fencing off money and saying it can only be used for X, Y, or Z. I think long-term that could really create some challenges for us.
It's sufficient to say you're open to the possibility.
Is that what you took from that? Just to make sure I'm clear.
Being interested in working with partners is great, and it has been demonstrated. And I only hope we'll continue to see SMART look for those opportunities.
Yeah.
That's what's possible.
And my only comment is on serving on this COC, that I think it's brought some awareness, even if you were aware, of just how difficult some of these, between litigation, property interest, planning, funding. It's not like you just throw some cement down or
Yeah.
asphalt and it's done. So, I mean, if nothing else, it's a complicated process. And I know for me, attending meetings, it's given me a much deeper understanding of how the process works. So I just, a
Yeah,
comment.
it is complex, and the one thing that, when you look at how small our team is, I'm impressed every day by what we pull off. With the number of projects that we have going on, if this was, a big agency like BART or something like that, it all makes sense. But just having the few people that we have and how hard our folks are working to pull this off at all levels, to me, this is just really special. And, to just think about things about where we have a ribbon cutting, and then in 1 year, or we have a groundbreaking, and then 1 year later, we're cutting a ribbon. You don't see that hardly anywhere. But that's what we're doing, and anyway, just give it up to the staff because there's a lot of work happening,
And you still get to go home on weekends mostly, right?
mostly.
Oh, I just want to comment too, there was my husband was a fireman in San Francisco, and so we have squawk boxes all over.
Yeah.
There was a big incident on the tracks involving the Petaluma River and the bridge, and I'd like to just applaud the staff on how quickly they responded to that incident, and then how it affected the trains, and how the safety, there's cops, I mean, just helicopters. It was just a very complicated process, and just as they initiated a bus bridge, it was all over, so it was, but really good work.
Yeah, thank you.
And being responsive to that incident.
Thank you.
The one comment on that, having spent 2 hours at the Petaluma train station, it would have been nice to at least have some kind of an announcement come up. I ended up calling one of your staff members and saying, what is going on? But, I mean, but there was nothing there saying that what was happening with the trains, and that would be helpful,
Okay, thank you.
especially with the real signs up now.
It's kind of hard to know, though, when you're in an incident that's in progress.
Well, I mean, we didn't even know that, you know.
That's good. I had heard that they made platform announcements, so I'll go back and check on that and see if that didn't happen, then that's our mistake. Yeah. We tried really hard to get the train into Petaluma downtown. That seemed to make a lot of sense for us because we knew where the activity was. So we really wanted to get the train in, at least if we stopped there, people could get on. I did see you there, but I was actually watching the cameras that day at Petaluma. But law enforcement said, no way, Jose, we weren't going to let us in there. So we had to stop at Katati. So, okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. Our next, after general manager report, excellent, thank you very much. Our progress is remarkable. We're asking for public comment on non-agenda items. Do we see any public comment? Brian?
At this time, we have no hands raised for public comment.
Okay, given that, we will talk about our eminent term expirations. And I think we're looking to Mr. Cummins to tell us that.
All right. Let me bring this presentation back up, Brian. Okay, so just a little background. COC bylaws section 3.21 establish members to have staggered terms. We all remember that. The initial appointments were established for 1, 2, or 3 years. Appointment for 3 members that's currently on our COC expires in March of 2025. The vacancy application period, and this is, staff suggestion here, is to run that from January 6th to February 3rd, giving almost a month. And then in February of 25, we would request, similar to how we did last time, that the Board of Directors appoint an ad hoc committee to review applications. And then those selected members would serve a 3-year term moving forward. And then we would make recommendations to the full board on March 19th of 2025 for approval by the SMART Board of Directors. And then the new or reappointed COC members would attend the March meeting. Again, the next item that I have is to bring up a proposed agenda. So assuming that our first meeting would be in March of 25, then that would be our recommendation as the start time.
And just to clarify, it's
Yes.
Zachary Cushel, Connor McKay, who's not here, and myself, who are up for our seats. And so we go through the process of applying, and if you choose to.
Yeah, that is the one thing that's different, right, is that we kind of set these limits and, set up the new bylaws. And so we would go through the exact same process, apply, and have the ad hoc committee review and make selections.
Well, and I encourage all of you to reapply. I know I will be, so.
Great. So I think that was it for this particular portion of the presentation. Just looking for any feedback. Are we okay kind of with that proposed timeline. Are there any questions? This is exactly what we did last time, so I think that this has proven to work for us in the past, but obviously open to feedback.
So just for clarity, would you like a motion to approve these dates, knowing that they can always be
I
changed?
don't think I need anything, just a head nod in
Okay.
general,
All right. I
that
don't
we're
have
on the
any
right
objections.
track.
All right, thank you.
Just a
Oh, go
quick,
ahead. Sorry,
so
Thad.
to be clear, the March 26th meeting is for the new COC or for the old COC?
The new COC.
Okay, thank you.
And now I've got a question.
Go ahead.
I think an important part of the COC being able to play a role is your recruitment. I don't have any negative comments how it's been done in the past, but it'd be helpful to, and in general, I think SMART's outreach is fantastic. I think you guys do a good job in your communication. But I would appreciate hearing from you how you'll work towards having a diverse group of folks serving on the, or applying, and how you'll reach people who may not otherwise hear about the opportunity to serve on the COC. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, obviously, we can use all the help we can get, we'll put that out in our newsletter. We send it to several groups. Do you want to speak to some of those agencies we send to?
Julia Gonzalez, Communications and Marketing Manager for SMART. So the list of people that we can reach is pretty broad. We can, when we send out an e-blast, we have a segmented list that can reach people who are in the business community, the transportation sector, the public sector. So we will send out a large blanket email announcing this. We also reach a lot of service agencies, nonprofit agencies, and then we'll lean on our partners to help us get the word out about this. In general, when we do a communication of this nature, between our social media channels and the amplified message email, we can reach up to 20,000 people.
Just a follow-up question. Would you be willing to do like one of the ad boards inside the train and or the electronic signboards at the station as a way to reach people who are not on your email list?
I think that's a great idea. The digital, the new real-time signs have on the right panel allows us to have a graphic text also, where we can include a QR code and a link to that. So I think that's, and also would allow us to have slides that rotate so that we can have the information both in Spanish and English. Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you.
We could ask for more than that. Does that satisfy your question? Good. Now we get my next favorite is presentation from Planning Manager Emily Betts.
I think I have one more, do I not?
Yes, you do.
Number
If I have
7.
the meeting
Oh, I thought
schedule.
you said that was just a given.
Oh,
So-
no,
I'm
it's not a
sorry.
given.
Okay. My bad.
So, again, just a little background. COC bylaws, section 5.1, regular meetings of the committee shall be held at least quarterly or more often as needed to discharge the COC's primary duties related to the strategic plan. The meetings will be held in person at the SMART office. Meetings are scheduled to begin at 1:30 p.m. And so after looking at kind of some of the things we had coming up in the upcoming year, staff is recommending the following dates. The first meeting of the year would be March 26, 2025, followed by May 28th, September 24th, and December 10th. And so we just wanted, looking at making sure we get these things in quarterly. Obviously, the one in May will have very much of a budget focus to it. So that one's really important to us, but really wanted to throw this out here to the COC to see if these dates work for you.
And Heather, that's how we coordinated what you're going to need in terms of presentation and then approval from the board.
Yes, Laddie and I worked together to try to come up with that date, so.
Thank you. Any comments? Kevin?
Sorry, are these dates subject to change? Let's say some issue comes up that you need our input. You can add additional dates or change dates?
Yes, we can always add meetings. Yeah, if there was something that needed to happen. I think we did that this year with the strategic plan. I'm trying to, it was at 1 or 2?
2 meetings.
Yeah, so we added 2 additional meetings this year as we needed feedback on the strategic plan as we were moving forward.
And this seems pretty well spaced out. I believe last year we were kind of, or this year, we were kind of stacked up, and so
Right,
said it didn't make any sense to meet two
Right.
months in a row. when
right,
Or quarterly
yeah.
decisions.
So I think this could be a good one, but wanted to make sure we had your feedback and approval before, posting that.
So that's what I meant by, did you need a motion for anything like that?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that would be very helpful to have a motion setting the dates.
Yep, thank you.
Can I get that motion, please?
I move that we approve the meetings as published.
Thanks, Tom. I need a second. Okay, Sherry, thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we pass.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to jump ahead, I thought. Anyway, I got confused. All right, now we're on item number 8, and now we get to hear from Mrs. Betts.
Let's see. There we go. Good afternoon, COC and Chair. So I have a couple presentations here for you, and the first one is on this project called Mascots, which is sort of a funny acronym. It stands for Marin Sonoma Coordinated Transit Service Plan, Introduction and Key Findings. And we don't usually get into detailed service planning with either this group or the board. This is a pretty high-level project, but I would say it's the biggest transit service planning project in the North Bay in a really long time. And this presentation is being given to citizens advisory committees and boards for all of the different agencies that are included in this plan. Okay? And it's also highly relevant to the strategic plan, which will be coming up next. Okay, so I'll be doing an introduction to what is this project and going over some key findings. This is just an informational presentation at this point. You can see the logos of all the different agencies that are involved, all of the transit agencies in the North Bay, plus SCTA, TAM, and MTC. So what is this project and why are we doing this? Well, in 2017, SMART began service in the North Bay, and no comprehensive service planning has taken place since that time. The introduction of SMART really fundamentally changed the transit landscape in the North Bay. And then we had a major pandemic, and travel patterns have changed. Certainly the commute into the city, but also commute patterns on all of our services. And because of that, the transit partners with MTC decided it was the right moment to conduct a comprehensive structural analysis of transit on the Highway 101 corridor. You can see on the right side, sort of blurry map, but it shows that the Golden Gate 101 services and other services directly parallel the SMART service, right? So as we're asking the question specifically for the 101 corridor, what is the best way to be running service here? The purpose of the study is to improve service efficiency, effectiveness, and legibility for the rider along the Highway 101 corridor to better serve existing and future transit customers. So questions we're asking include, what are the regional markets where transit can be successful? How well is the current service meeting those needs? How well are equity priority communities served? What should future service look like? And then what's the right mix between regional and local service on the corridor? So this study is focusing on regional service, not on local connections, though those certainly play an important role. It's an operator-neutral exercise at this point. So it's just saying, given where people live and where they're going, and given the infrastructure that we have in place, what is the best way to provide service on this corridor? And grounded in our new normal travel behavior and work patterns. The output is going to be a report, Sub-Regional Strategic Operations Plan. The plan will consider costing, facilities, and funding as well. So this past summer, we did the first phase, which was existing conditions report, and that's what I'll be talking about some in this presentation. The fall has been drafting some strategies or solutions, and we're still in that phase right now. And then in 2025, we're going to be coming back to our boards with presentation of alternative scenarios. So I'm going to go over some of the key findings of the existing conditions that really sort of spell out what is the new normal that we are looking at and how are the transit agencies meeting those. So about 2/3 of all trips from Marin and Sonoma counties to San Francisco originate in San Rafael or south. Over 3/4 of the trips between Sonoma County and Marin have origins or destinations within the SMART travel shed, right? Suggesting that those people should be able to access a SMART system. And then about 2/3 of the trips from Marin and Sonoma to San Francisco end at downtown Fisherman's Wharf and Civic Center. Since the introduction of SMART in 2017, riders have shifted from Golden Gate to SMART, but it's not just that. It's that we're seeing increased transit ridership overall in the North Bay. More people are riding transit than ever before in the North Bay with the introduction of a rail service. SMART is faster, more reliable, and more frequent than the bus service during the core hours of the day. And SMART's carrying a much larger share of the travel market for the parallel routes. So for example, San Rafael to Santa Rosa, SMART's carrying about 3,600 a day, and the Golden Gate 101 is at about 700. I'm not going to get bogged down into the details of this, but suffice it to say that Golden Gate is serving dispersed audiences. A lot of their ridership is actually within San Francisco, people getting on in the city and back off the city, and then also local services, Marin to Marin. About 40 to 60% of their ridership is not regional. In terms of Golden Gate services, the ferries actually carry the majority of riders between Marin County and San Francisco. They carry 60% more than the regional bus. And for the Larkspur ferry, they have about 2,400 weekday riders. Key findings for Sonoma County and Sonoma to Marin. There's a lot of duplication in the corridor, which you may have experienced if you ever tried to decide between the bus and the train. There are 3 different bus services running up and down the corridor. The predominant rider choice has become SMART over Golden Gate, but it's not easy to get to SMART. The local services are not timed for the train, and the infrastructure is not always there to allow people to use local bus to get to the train. In Marin County, the key findings were that Highway 101 is overserved between Golden Gate and Marin Transit. Okay, this is all looking at service south of San Rafael, but is important for our riders who want to make a streamlined journey into the city. And so a lot of what we've been looking at is how can we offer frequent enough service between San Rafael and San Francisco so that you can disembark at San Rafael and easily get on a bus into the city. So the coordination is primarily between Marin Transit and Golden Gate. So like I said, we are still developing these service proposals. We're going to be coming back to our boards in early 2025. But right now, we're just in the phase of letting all of our stakeholder groups know that this exercise is underway. And I wanted this group in particular to understand that it's happening as it fits in with the strategic plan and the direction and role of SMART going forward. So I'm happy to answer questions on mascots.
Kevin?
Thanks for the report. If there is duplication of services, can you tell us how that decision is going to be made, in which services will be eliminated or reduced?
So that's exactly the question we're looking at. We have hired a consultant who's coordinating between the 7 different agencies and making recommendations based on work travel patterns. They're actually using replica data, which is cell phone-based data, showing origins and destinations. They have not proposed cutting the commute services for Golden Gate because those are very productive services, right? But other occasions where the service is not as productive, we're discussing how you can funnel people onto the SMART system instead. So I don't have a definite answer for you. That's still underway, but that's definitely the type of thing we're looking at.
Yeah, there's, if I could just tag on to that, there's a lot of conversations that have to happen. Right now, we're going through this process, the consultant's giving ideas. I think at the end of the day, there won't necessarily be less service. It'll be about doubling down on services in different areas to make sure that it works more as a system. And so that's really what the primary focus is on. But as what I've seen to date, I don't see that there would be necessarily any service overall cut across the board. But it may be focused, like bus service may be focused in a different area than it is today.
Sherry, Anthony, which one of you wants to go first?
I have a question, and I'll have a couple comments after that so you can understand where I'm coming from. I think my question is really how will the concerns of riders who use these transit services and maybe even potential riders be considered? Is it only going to be through these boards? And I'll give you a few examples to help you understand my concerns. The idea of coordinating sounds really great and makes a lot of sense. Some of the things I'm hearing are perceived really differently from the point of view of a person who's using the transit from where I stand. When you say there's duplication, for example, on the 101 corridor, there's not a single Sonoma County transit bus that can get me somewhere faster that I can ride my bike there. Those are not replicating what these other services are doing. I understand why you want to take the regional approach, but the reason people take Golden Gate Transit within a county is because there's no one else who's doing it well. It is the best option all those times that SMART is not meeting our needs, those of us who use transit. You want to go north on a weekend before noon, you're not taking SMART. If you want to go somewhere at 4 in the morning, you can take Golden Gate Transit. If you want to go somewhere until midnight, you can take Golden Gate Transit. So I understand that you get that and that you're very aware that SMART does not meet people's every single transit need. But as the point of view, the reason I don't get the monthly pass is because I need to be able to take Golden Gate Transit for all the times that SMART is not running. So I just want to elevate the voices of those who use transit. I think all of us who use transit have been waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? We all know that ridership for all these other services is way down, and probably they cannot maintain these same levels of service. The time's going to come. And I appreciate that the group effort is probably the best way to go, but just wanting to elevate the voices. Like when I hear 2/3 of people go into Civic Center, Fisherman's Wharf, one of the reasons I've taken Golden Gate Transit to the city twice this week, I have to get off some other place than where the ferry puts me, and it's also faster because I don't have to wait half an hour in Larkspur. So if 2/3 are going to Civic Center or Fisherman's Wharf, 1/3 of the people want to be able to get off somewhere else. So I just want to elevate that concern, and I appreciate, I know you're aware of many of these things, so I just want to highlight those. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Anthony.
Yeah, so I actually got a word about, the mascots from yesterday, from another board meeting yesterday with Marin Transit, in which I was intrigued at how this is going to be developed and coordinated. What I really am concerned about is we're dealing with multiple agencies having different priorities, in which if in a planning sense where I live in, it becomes a question of how can SMART provide an anchor to all of these transit services that feed onto SMART so that we can have a better service, not just for the train riders, but also for those bus riders and those who really rely on transit like myself. So it becomes like the moral question of how can SMART play a leading role in mascots so that the other agencies can coordinate with you, much like how BART is coordinating with all of these other transit agencies to feed their riders into their system. So it's, so it becomes a question of I really want to see SMART play a leading role in this effort because you're the ones who carry a lot more passengers now than Golden Gate. And truly, your system can benefit from even more riders if you commit to adding even more service, like more weekend service if possible. So that's pretty much my observation from all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Anybody else? Okay, go ahead, Jack.
Those, getting into the city numbers, the 2,400 from Larkspur Ferry, 900 from Sausalito, Tiburon 400, plus all the buses, how has that changed since Larkspur opened in 2019? I'm just curious, has that Larkspur number gone way up in the last 5 years and other numbers gone down? Or I'm just curious how SMART has impacted that.
That's a great question. I don't have the full answer on how has SMART impacted. I know that Ferry has not returned to their pre-COVID numbers. I did hear today that their October ridership is 15% higher than last October, so they are seeing some ridership return. But the SMART question, I'm not sure. I can look into that. I wanted to also answer some of the questions that you were asking. So we are planning an extensive outreach process. Yeah, I mean, we absolutely would not consider changing, or cutting any service in the North Bay without doing an outreach process and getting the input of those riders. And to your point of there needs to be a service when SMART is not running, yes, we totally understand that. And that's the beauty of the comprehensive effort, to have all the agencies together to make sure the gaps are addressed. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation. And we have one more, eh?
Can we check for public comment?
Pardon?
Public comment
Oh, I'm sorry.
online.
Do we have some public comment? I see we have a few viewers. Anybody in the room? Online?
At this time, we have no hands raised for public comment.
Thank you. Okay, you're still on, Emily.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a brief overview. We included the draft strategic plan in your packet. So I hope you had a chance to review. I'm looking forward to receiving your comments. I'm going to run through the process that we have taken to date, and then have time for discussion. So as you know, the strategic plan helps define the direction of the organization. It establishes goals, objectives, and actions in line with our vision and mission. It was last adopted in 2019. It's a 5-year document, and so this document will take us for FY25 through FY30. And we have been conducting outreach since we began the plan in January, and we are now at the point of having drafted the plan and receiving comments on that. So the whole plan is structured around our vision, our mission, our values, and the 4 pillars of the SMART House: ridership, pathways, extensions, and freight. These are the same draft goals that I presented to you last time we met. And then from those goals, we developed strategies. The strategies outline the tactics that we can take to implement the goals. And then those strategies are implemented through actions that are all rooted in our values and then designed to achieve the goals. So we did hold a public workshop in September. I wanted to report out on that because we haven't met since then. It was an in-person drop-in style workshop. We held it at the Petaluma Arts Center during the PM peak commute hours, 4 to 6. And we had staff up on the platform inviting people to come into the workshop, and we had wonderful attendance. We had, I'd say, 150 to 200 people come in. All of the strategies and draft actions were all presented on posters. Participants were invited to place their dots next to their highest priorities and write comments. And as you can see from these examples, we had really great participation, and we've really combed through these things. In addition to the 160 comments that we received through our online form, and really taken this input, quantified it, and made sure that these items were prioritized in the plan as strategies and actions. So, yeah, we received over 700 dots on the posters, and a lot of interaction really on all of the areas. You can see on the right-hand side, that's our pathway planner, Zoe, explaining the pathway to one of the participants. Some pictures. All right. So this is also a financial document, but it's different from our annual budget in the sense that this is a high-level 5-year financial plan. So in that sense, it provides the roadmap for achieving our goals, and it guides the allocation of resources, investment decisions, and the budgeting strategies that we need to achieve those goals. So we determine what our goals, strategies, actions are, and then every year we go through our budgeting process, and at that time we say, are these budgeting decisions in line with the strategies and actions that we set out for ourselves in the strategic plan? And that's what this graphic on the bottom is meant to show, that this is a cyclical process, and that every year through the budget, we come back to the plan as a sounding board. And here we are in our timeline. We're in the last phase where we're finally presenting the strategic plan, the draft plan. And we are planning on bringing it to the board next week as well, and then back to the board, hopefully for approval in December. So this is a picture of the plan. It is online for public comment. There's the plan document and a couple of appendices, an extensive summary of all of the outreach that we received, as well as a year-by-year breakdown of projected revenues and expenditures. And we we're open for public comment through the end of November. So at this point, I just want to open it up for discussion. You know, I would love to get any feedback on what you thought of the draft plan, you know, if there was anything in there that stood out to you or surprised you, anything you felt like was missing, any feedback.
Sherry?
Thank you. Everything I hoped to see in there was in there. I'll call out one thing I was especially excited to read. In ridership, which is exactly where it belongs, explore ways to increase bicycle capacity on board, evaluate removing additional seats by the hooks. Yeah, that's great. Lots of other great things in there too, but I don't need to belabor. Oh, and my bicycle made a cameo and is in one of those photos. All very important. My main comment to you is to, so a 50-page document, let's be honest, most people are not going to read this, including people we want to hear from. And we want them, you know, a strategic plan has a lot of goals. A lot of it is like, how do we communicate? It's kind of an outreach tool. Like, it's trying to do all these things for the agency. And so you've got a ton of background and context and current status. But however, your executive summary is your tool to reach all the people who are not going to read 50 pages. Right now, your executive summary has almost no summary. It is an introduction to strategic planning, it's context for this plan. There's 2 sentences at the end that's a vision statement, and it lists the 4 pillars. Here's what I suggest to you for the executive, executive summary. 1, remove most of the background, context, and current finances. Each of those could be 2 sentences saying, you want to hear more, read section, page, such and such. So those don't need to be recapitulated in the executive summary. They're important parts of your plan because you want to give all these people this background and context, but they don't belong in the executive summary. The executive summary should include the goals. The goals are the meat of the plan. That's what's awesome in there. The rest of it is, to those of us who follow SMART, already known. It's fine for it to be in your strategic plan, but it doesn't belong in your executive summary. It should be the goals, bullet pointed, and I'd like to see also a subset of strategies, but there's plenty of room for disagreement on that. But at least the goals should be in there. That should be the meat. It's both the meat of the plan, and it should also be the meat of your executive summary. That's the end of my comment. Thank you.
Okay, we have Sandy and Zachary and Tom.
Yeah, I thought the document itself was great, but I did have a question about outreach. And how are we doing outreach into Sonoma and Sebastopol and getting their feedback on these plans? I mean, are we doing any actual meetings there? How are we handling those two communities? Because I see them as they don't have a lot of access to SMART, and whenever I talk to people, particularly in Sebastopol, and they say, "Oh, I've never ridden it. Why would I ride it?" So.
Yeah, I can start with an answer to that. So on the logistical front for outreach, we did reach out to those communities and offered to do a presentation on the strategic plan. So I have not heard back from them, but I agree with you that more outreach there is good. Yeah.
We also offered at our open house, we also offered an online version, so people could use Minty to go in and provide their feedback as well. It did appear that a lot of those folks were Geyserville and Cloverdale residents that were weighing in, because that was a lot of the feedback we received, but we were cognizant of that. We did send out emails to all the communities and offered to come out and to provide presentations. Obviously, when I'm out speaking, this has been one of the key talking points that I've had. So although we didn't go directly to Sebastopol, going to Rotary clubs and chamber meetings and things like that, we obviously had an opportunity to get the word out to a lot of folks and request feedback. And I think, I don't know that we can tell by the email addresses of where things come from, but we did get 160 comments that came in from online. So people had the opportunity to do that. But as Emily mentioned, outreach can always be better, for sure.
Thank you, Danny. So just a couple of questions on some numbers. I'm a big believer in you get what you measure. So when we say our goal is to get 5,000 plus riders a day, this is a 5-year plan. So my question is kind of straightforward, which is when? Like, that's very different than, right, getting 5,000 by early 25 versus 2030. And I worry that, it's perhaps not ambitious enough. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy to get to 5,000, but I think if you're at 5,000 in 2026, what mechanisms do we have to say, well, actually, we're going to be more aggressive there? So that was my question, my first question.
Well, I think everybody knows that there's probably nothing more important to me than ridership, and we're going to continue to push, and we're going to get there as soon as we can. Here's the thing. I truly do not want to be in the position of where people said I lied to them. Right? I mean, you go out, you set a goal, and the next thing you know, I go somewhere and they're like, you lied. You told us that you would be at this or you would do this by this date. You lied to us. Well, no, we're going to do our best to get there. I think when Windsor opens, I think we're probably going to be close, right? But we're going to see. We're going to see what happens. What impact will Petaluma North have? How much of a new market will we pick up there? But I think what this shows is just the way we came from, 400 or 500 riders a day to 3,800 a day in this period of time. We're going to continue to push as hard as we can. I don't even like being stifled by the 5,000 number, right? Because when and my team knows this, right? The day we hit 5,000, I'll just say 5,500, and then it'll be 6,000, right? Everybody already knows that. So we're going to continue pushing forward, but when it comes to setting these goals, just like on extensions, give us a date of when you're going to be in Cloverdale. I don't want to lie to people.
Right.
I'm doing everything we can do. Our team is working as hard as they can. We're going after every grant that's out there. I think everybody knows that we are doing our best, but I truly don't want to be in the position of folks saying that we lied to them. So.
Yeah. I think that's very fair. I think it's different, though, saying, I'm promising we're getting to 7,000 versus saying it's a stretch goal for us to get there. So so there is that balance between.
I agree.
So it's good to hear how you think about it. I saw 5,000 and I thought, I think we're going to get there by 26 too. Yeah. So then it's like, okay, we got 4 years left in this plan and we've already hit our number one goal. So it's like, are we being ambitious enough?
Yeah, no, I fully get it. And I think that comes from a place of somebody that's out speaking on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Right. And taking questions from the audience. And, you told us you were going to build from Larkspur to Cloverdale and you're not at Cloverdale. Therefore you lied to us. Right. And
Yep.
so anyway, it's just something that I'm very cognizant of, and I want to be very open and honest and transparent with the public
Yeah.
of also what our limitations are.
And that's fair. So then I guess the sub-question to that is, it sounds like you are open to annual goal setting as far as ridership goes.
Oh, absolutely.
Once you're beyond
So-
that metric, yeah.
So, taking that perspective, right, when we went into FY '25, so last year we ended the year at 850,000, okay? So, went to the board and said, hey, as we're going into budgeting, we're gonna really push hard. We want 950,000, in FY '25. Okay, so that started in June. I was back, I think, in August or September, saying, you know what, things are going really good. We're gonna stretch this out to 1 million. So our goal for FY '25 is now 1 million. That's the stretch goal that we're putting out there. So again, I see it as a different context. That's a way that we can communicate, this is our goal, we're
Yep.
gonna continue to push forward, rather than in a document that will be taken
Okay.
as a promise.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I have more questions. Do you want to go to other people, or should I?
Get it out of your system, let's go.
So fare box recovery. I know we've talked about that in these meetings, and my personal opinion has been, we haven't been focused on that. We've been focused on ridership, and I've been highly supportive of that. And I'm still highly supportive of that. I don't think I saw any goals, though, in this document related to that issue. And I think, there is an element of, fiscal responsibility, right? So I was just curious, were there discussions around goal setting there, or was it just not even something that was talked about as part of this process because it's just not something the agency's focused on?
It isn't based on the decisions of our board, it's not a sense that we felt like that was the, a key priority, but it is definitely something that I think when we talk to the board as COC feedback, is that something they would like to see us include as to, so yeah, I think we can take that
Like
feedback.
my
ask the
recommendation is more, rather than saying we have to have some wildly aggressive number there, saying, hey, we're gonna do this, we're gonna focus on ridership, but we need to make sure fare box recovery doesn't dip below X, because we feel like that would be irresponsible. I think that's seeing something like that in the document, I think would make me feel.
It is very
a little bit.
interesting.
Yeah.
It is very interesting. I don't know if you saw the presentation I gave to the board, but we did an analysis on the free fare, and it was very interesting because we didn't lose any fare box, right? The amount actually went up, which was staggering. So we saw this huge increase in ridership, and although we were, compensating for the fares for the youth and seniors, right? That was 24% of our ridership before we did free fares. But during that same period of time, our adult ridership went up, that pays full price, went up 12%. So it was almost relatively
That's great.
flat, which was very interesting to see.
Yeah.
But that's something, definitely, that's good feedback and something we can bring back to the board when we present to them next week and ask them if that's something they would like us to highlight. And if so, how would they like to see that? So great.
I appreciate that. My third question, since we're so focused on ridership and talking about these goals, I know we've talked about in these meetings that, with the free fares, it's become more difficult to actually measure ridership than it was when everyone was paying. So, okay, you don't agree with that? Yeah.
Well, I don't think I understand. That was my, I don't understand.
I think we've had conversations around, if everyone's not tagging on, tagging off, how are we actually measuring ridership? And are we confident that we're doing it 100% accurately, right? And are we making estimates based on certain things? I was just curious if there's been more discussions on measuring ridership, with that being the reality of where we're pushing forward.
I think there may be a little bit of a misconception there.
Okay,
So the
good.
riders are counted by automated personnel counters.
Okay.
They're on the train, so when people walk in, regardless of how they paid, they're counted, right? And so every morning at 4:30 a.m., I know what yesterday's ridership was. So the thing that you would be giving up with the TAP data is exactly where people got on and where they got off.
I see.
That's the data that you're giving up.
So
with
it's
that.
the micro, got it, understanding trips. So I was misinformed. So basically what you're saying is that you feel very good that you have a highly accurate count on ridership despite free fares. It has nothing to do with, one has nothing to do with the other.
No, it's
great.
absolutely accurate.
Okay, that's helpful. I misunderstood. And then my last question was just in the budget portion. I noticed on the revenue side that there was 42% of the revenue budget was listed as unfunded future grants. And I just don't have the context. Like, how common is that for an agency like this, right? For a 5-year plan to be able to say, yeah, like we don't know where a good chunk of this revenue is coming from, but we feel good enough putting this into the plan. And is that 42% a number that has you sleeping well at night? Is that high, low? Just curious for context around that number, because I certainly noticed that. It's like, oh, okay, like, yeah.
So since the last time we met, we brought in 92 million in grants, right? We're over, I think in the last 3 years, we're over 300 million that we've brought in, right? And so we've been very aggressive on going after grants. Again, you don't know if you're getting them until you get them, but that's basically setting a goal of saying that if we want to achieve our objectives, if we want to achieve what we put into our strategic plan, we have to continue that strategy. So it's almost setting a goal for grants, right?
That makes sense.
Of go ahead.
Well, I just want to add along those lines too, is to point out that that money is also for capital. So if you don't get the money, you don't do those capital improvements. So none of that money that is in the unfunded category is for operating costs and general maintenance and operations. It's all for capital. So if for whatever reason, we don't think we will, if for whatever reason we don't get that money, we just wouldn't do that particular project that's associated with those unfunded dollars.
Okay, so it's another way of saying to deliver upon the capital, the building goals we have outlined in this plan, we still need to find X number of dollars to go do that. And
Correct.
to Eddie's point, that's kind of us backing into a goal for grants over that 5-year period.
And allowing us, allowing our funding partners to see that we are serious about these projects. We want to move forward with them, and we have even put them in our strategic plan. So we want to pursue these grants for these projects. And I think it's closer to $412 million since been brought in that time period. So
Over the last 3 years.
yeah.
But this draft we saw was inclusive of the last two, the Healdsburg. No, it's not. So this draft
This
we're
is
looking at.
moving forward, right?
No, but I mean that 42% number
Yes,
that
it
I'm
includes
quoting.
the 81 that we just got.
Okay, that includes those two. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Those are my questions. Thank you, Danny.
Okay, very good questions. Thank you. Kevin?
Emily, thank you very much for the report. I was very impressed with the way it was presented. I did have a question. It seemed to me the biggest challenge, or one of the biggest challenges facing this agency, is the ability to get the sales tax renewed, before 2029, within the strategic plan. Following up a comment of one of my colleagues, I think it's important, and one of the issues is going to be, transparency, well-managed system, so that the public can see where the money's going to, that perhaps there ought to be an annual update or review of the strategic plan every year, not to change the plan necessarily, but to show people where you are with the plan, how much you've accomplished. Are you meeting your goals? Have you considered that?
I haven't thought about it in exactly that context. We put out several different documents, and I think that's what go ahead. Yeah.
So as Emily mentioned, this is a circular pattern, right? We use the strategic plan to generate the annual element of the budget. And that's the time that we go back and review where we are with the strategic plan. And I think maybe you said it, you only do what you fund, right? So we want to make sure that we're funding the things that move us forward in that strategic plan. In the actual document, we actually list all the accomplishments from the last strategic plan each year that we've accomplished, and then what we're going to do in the next year in the budget as far as meeting those action items that are required to meet those strategies. So that's one place that we already put that information, is in the annual budget. And we may want to do something else, but that is where it is on a micro level on an annual basis.
And it just works out that, my performance evaluation is due at the end of the year every year, because I started at the end of the year. And so what I typically do in December is I do, in my GM report or a special presentation, just kind of go over overall what we accomplished in the year. And that essentially then we leave this meeting, we go into closed session, and I get my evaluation, right? But we try to hit kind of what's going on, but where it's documented is in the budget book.
I think that's great. I just think we ought to be looking for ways to communicate to the public, because a lot of members of the public are not going to be looking at the budget report.
Yeah, I don't think we have any issue with doing this. I think I need to talk to Heather as far as timeline, but if that's something that we want to add to the COC meeting, right, once a year, maybe it's the September meeting or something like that, or the December meeting where we come back and say, this is where we were with the strategic plan, these are the things that we accomplished that were in here. I think that that's something that we could do.
Yeah, I don't think you need to impress us. I think, speaking for myself, I'm very impressed with what you and your limited staff have been able to do. But it's just being able to get the word out to the public.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, we can work and see if we can add that to our information that we put out to the public. Okay, thank you.
It's an excellent suggestion, not to add more work, but it'll help you in your review, I hope. Anthony?
Yeah, so regarding budgets and funding, I understand that, with an upcoming administration change, that means there will be a different set of priorities. That could also translate to potentially less funding from the federal government. How is the agency preparing itself for for an unlikely scenario wherein the funding from the feds might dry up, so that the operations could continue as expected? Given that you have quite a large amount of funding that is still unfunded to begin with.
So first off, operations and capital are two different things. Let's make sure we're very, very clear on that, right? So back to what Heather mentioned, it's very important, right? So if you're going after grants, those would fund capital projects. You use the word operations. I just want to be very clear. Measure Q funds operations. So that's our sales tax dollars. In regards to the administration, I think that you adapt and overcome, right? You find out how you navigate that, you find out how the new game is played, and you adjust and you adapt, and you don't give up. So we're going to continue to be just as aggressive as we always have, and we're going to figure out how to play the game and continue to be successful. So that's the nature that we have here. We're not just going to throw our hands in the air and say, new administration, we'll just wait 4 years and see what happens. We're going to continue to do what we do, which is move forward.
Perfect, because to be honest with you, in case of uncertainty, there's something called, you're gonna need to have a rainy day fund, so that in case anything happens to the system, let's say there's a crash or something like that, or there's an unforeseen incident, part of the rainy day fund could help address the those particular concerns, especially when you never know when an additional expenditure may be needed to address a particular concern here and now, versus waiting until the last minute and you end up running into a bigger hole later on.
So our budget already has reserves, and those things are accounted for in our budget. So there's money set aside each year, a certain amount, certain percentages that are there for those types of incidents or bad things to happen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom?
First of all, I did attend the workshop, the in-person workshop in Petaluma. Thank you very much. It was great. And the attendance there was really impressive, the amount of people that were in there. It was hard to get to the food. No.
I've never seen anything like it. I'm going to be honest with you. I've been to a lot of transit-related open houses, and I hate to say it, but I've been to several where there was 1 or 2 people that showed up, right? And so I was on my way over there. It was about 3:30, and Emily called me and said, "You need to hurry up. We're already packed." It didn't start till 4 or whatever it was. People showed up early. And so when I walked in the door, it was packed, and it stayed packed until the very end. And so it was amazing, to be honest with you, to see that level of engagement. And just, it wasn't just people coming for the food either. They were actually engaged in putting dots and reading the boards and
The number of
talking
people
to us.
putting dots was impressive,
Yeah.
and actually spending time and reading through it. was
Right.
impressive. So I want to congratulate you guys on that.
Thank you.
So my second question is on the freight. And in the strategic plan, there's lots of goals here on the freight itself, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of action plan to go along with it. I don't know if that was intentional, we don't know, or how important or what priority is freight taking on in the whole project here?
Yeah, we've been very clear, freight's a challenge. As we continue to go north and we expand north, I think it opens up that market. But those are things that, we're working on it as we speak, and try and, we set, the bar where the bar is, right, which is sustain it, right? But it's proven to not be easy. And we're just continuing to move forward on that one. And so the actions that we put in there are things that we want to get done, we want to accomplish. And I think as we continue to go north, obviously that's going to open up to new customer bases and could potentially help us there. But it hasn't been easy.
Is there a plan on freight to go farther north than the train would go, the SMART train would go, passenger
No.
train? No. Okay.
No,
So-
the train tracks, the SMART train tracks will end in Cloverdale.
And the storage facility is not going to take any kind of gas or whatever it was that they had all.
As of right now, that's been the decision of the board, which is no LPG. So we're continuing with that. Obviously, if you get out there, it's pretty impressive to see all the Caltrain cars that are stored there today. There's a lot of them out there. Obviously that's bringing in some level of revenue. But as always, and it's one of our goals in there is to continue to develop that market. And I've been very clear about it with the community in Sonoma Valley. The market for storage in our area is LPG tankers. And right now our board has said no to that. And so we're continuing to move forward to see what other types of products we can find.
Is there a point when you take a look at the freight and say it's just not worth it?
I guess it could be. That's not our goal, right? Our goal is we want to continue to, we want to make it sustainable. We want to make it work, and that's where our goals are set right now. But it's hard to say in the future, if we couldn't close that gap. Obviously, it's if you look at the budget, everybody knows there's a funding gap there annually, and so we have got to figure out a way to close that funding gap, and if not, decisions will have to be made.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I do want to ask about the plans as we move to Windsor and to Healdsburg. You are kind of creating a infrastructure that would support freight. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So that's very promising. Do we have any other comments or concerns? Oh, we have people who want to talk, please.
Yeah, we have one hand raised for public comment at this time. First up for public comment is Matthew Hartzell. Go ahead, Matthew.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Citizens Advisory Committee. My name is Matthew Hartzell, the Director of Planning at WTB TAM. I hope you all received the comments letter that we sent to you yesterday. One of our comments, I think, was already addressed by one of the members on the dais, and it was already answered by General Manager Cummins, and that was about the first last mile network. So I'm going to skip that for now since it was already addressed. But I do want to emphasize the other main comment that we made in our letter, and which is specifically in reference to page 29 of the draft plan under Pathways Strategy 9. Develop plans for future pathway segments and enhancements. And we want to thank SMART for, I think, listening to some of the recommendations we made earlier in this process, because it looks like SMART has in fact included recommendations to develop conceptual plans for the Water Street segment in Petaluma and for the Cloverdale to Mendocino County line segment north of the SMART operating railroad right-of-way. And that latter one is important because it will close a key gap in the Great Redwood Trail, because the Great Redwood Trail authorities work begins north of the Mendocino County line. And the Water Street pathway in Petaluma is important because Petaluma has long been kind of the ugly duckling of the smart pathway system. It's the only city on the smart pathway network where the smart pathway is not always a pathway or a separated facility, and parts of the current alignment of the smart pathway in Petaluma are on street and have bicyclists riding in the street with cars. So it's the Water Street pathway will close a key gap, extending the current smart pathway from Lakeville Street down to connect into a network of pathways that the city of Petaluma and the Petaluma River Park Foundation are currently developing. And it's really key to pay attention to what the Petaluma River Park Foundation is doing, because they're doing a lot of the work. They're doing a lot of smarts work for them. Basically, they're building miles of pathway through Petaluma that will fulfill the function of the smart pathway. But there are still some additional segments that smart needs to include, such as the smart station block and the Hopper Street segment. So we advise adding those to the strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and we, of course, did get your written submission for both these sessions, and we appreciate it, and we have looked at it. Do we have any other comments?
I had one just off the
Please go ahead.
cuff comment or question. The shuttle at the airport, is it working?
Yes. Emily, you want to talk about the shuttle?
Sure.
Yes, the shuttle is still running 7 days a week.
No, I know it's running, but is
Yeah.
it being used?
Yes, ridership is slowly increasing. We had a new highest ridership record day last week. Really what's great to see is that the type of trips people are taking are spreading into commute trips. We're getting daily trips to places like Sonoma County Office of Education, medical centers, right? Things like that. So over half of the trips are still going to be to the airport, but we need to support those trips with daily commute trips, and we're starting to see more and more of that happening.
Good. They're also building a major hotel that should be completed in a
Right.
couple of years.
And we have expanded, we've kind of expanded that territory.
Yeah,
So
that sounds good.
overall, obviously we're hitting new markets now, so that's been great.
Yeah.
It's been helpful.
Good job. Go ahead, Kevin.
Would staff like to comment on the letter that was submitted that the gentleman just talked about?
So I on the first item or his second question, I
Well,
think it was more of a statement.
okay, but there were comments in the letter regarding the strategic plan, I believe. So does staff have any comments, or do they accept what he's suggesting? Do they have issues with what he's suggesting?
Okay, so the first question that was asked before we got to the strategic plan was one of the main points that he made about setting aside money.
Okay.
So it was related to that. I answered that question, that I
Okay.
didn't feel comfortable with that at this time. And was there anything on, you want to mention on Water Street or the pathway from Cloverdale to Mendocino County line?
I'm not ready to respond to the request in the comment letter, but he's correct that those things are included as conceptual design goals. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments from the committee and your questions and your deep thinking, for want of a better word. But it's been a very conscientious board. I hope to see you back here in March as a member. And
Chair,
yes.
I would also like to acknowledge that Member McKay submitted his comments, and they are being forwarded to staff.
Oh, okay, I have not seen that, so.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So, correct me if I'm wrong, if there's nothing further on the agenda, our next meeting is March 26, 2025. In the interim, 3 of us will be asked to reapply, which is Zachary, Connor, and myself. So, if there's nothing else, we'll see you then. This meeting's
Great.
adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. You've been great. You've been great.